We've talked about how soft the schedule is for 2024 NC State football, but when you look deeper at the schedule metrics, well, the proof is in the pudding.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. The playoffs are gone and sports have stopped sporting the way we want them to over the course of the summer. But that's where FanDuel steps in. They're hooking up all customers all summer long with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for someone every day all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Thursday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. We're going to look at some schedule metrics for NC State football, further proving that the time has to be now. And then obviously Thursday also had some big-time commitments for NC State football. We're going to get into those as well. But first, the schedule metrics. Now, there's a tweet that for some reason StreamYard is not letting me bring up. It's from Jackson Williford. Shout out Jackson. The official explanation is that SP Plus metrics are based on three pillars. 1, returning production. 2, recent recruiting. And 3, recent history. Essentially all rolled into one. It's a projection on how the offense is going to perform and how the team will handle their schedule based on how they've done recently in the last couple of years. Now, the tweet from Jackson that StreamYard is not letting me bring up, he had the entire NC State schedule outlined, and then he put the SP Plus metric next to that team. So I'm going to roll through these 12 here, and we're going to go over what we think. First here, the home opener against Western Carolina. They're actually not registered on the SP Plus metrics. They're not ranked. That's really all that needs to be said on that one. Second one, Tennessee and Charlotte. Tennessee is 16. That's a good metric. Louisiana Tech, 122. Clemson, 14. That's probably right where they should be. Northern Illinois, 91. Wake Forest, 78. Syracuse, 64. Cal, 52. Stanford, 84. Duke, 47. Georgia Tech, 63. And the Dirty Foot Club, 50. Kenton, are any of these surprising to you?
Not really. Not really. I mean, Grayson, you and I have talked about this, and we didn't pull this out our behinds. We didn't pull out, hey, the schedule is soft from osmosis. Like, that's not how that works. So, the reality of this thing is very simple. These metrics reflect what we've seen and what we know.
Yes.
These metrics reflect the idea that, hey, objectively speaking, these are not the best teams in America that we're going to be playing top to bottom here. We have a couple on the schedule that are very tough games, but for the most part, you're going to be playing a good amount of softies. And so you have to show up and show out in every game. You have to do what you're supposed to do because, like I said, this season is not about do you have the star power? Do you have the players? Have you recruited properly? This season more than any other is long story short about, are you playing your best football? Are you playing close to your best football? Because if you are operating at a high level, I don't see more than maybe 2 teams that you would say, hey, we both play our best game. They may walk away with a win here. Everybody else, you should walk away happy, smiling. The band plays Old McDonald's, strike up the band. It's all over but the crying.
We talked a couple weeks ago about the schedule and our predictions, and the overall theme was there's really only 2 tough games on the schedule. It's Tennessee and Charlotte, and it's on the road at Clemson. When you roll through these SP ratings, that only further proves the point. Those are the only 2 schools, not just within the top 25 that you're going to face this year, but within the top 40. The next closest is Duke at 47, and then the Dirty Foot Club at 50. Does anyone feel overly nervous about playing either one of those 2 schools this year? No. So it outlines what we already know. There's only really 2 big games on the schedule. We know exactly what they are and when they're played. With that being said, it's exactly what Kenton was talking about. If you don't play at the level that you are supposed to, any of these games could become losable. I'd say with the exception of Western Carolina. No disrespect. Any of these games, if you show up not ready to play, if you don't execute, if you have your head in the clouds or somewhere other than the field, they will shock you and they will ruin your season. Based on all the metrics that are run all throughout the summer to continually give people things to talk about, they keep coming back to the main point. There are 2 big games on this schedule. That being said, NC State needs to take care of business every single where else, including in those 2 big games, we hope. But outside of those 2, there are 10 other games that have to be pedal to the metal. Full focus for all 4 quarters, and you should be handling business.
Yeah, and that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Handling business. Again, there have been times where it's like, listen, you're outgunned, you're outmanned. That team is just better than you. Okay? You live with it. You give everything you got. You live with where the results take you. This year, if you give everything you got and you're moving and grooving in a positive direction, there should be no way that you're telling me Wake Forest has a better team than you. There should be no way that you are looking at me with the straightest of straight face and saying, hey, the Catamounts are as good as FCE Southeast Pandas are on College Football 25. A little inside baseball for those of you who have the game. But anywho, there's no way that should be a problem. So all in all, I'm watching this thing closely. I want to see how this team performs and, again, how well they lock in from week to week. Because if there is 4 to 5 losses, I know, very unserious, very unfocused, not ready for the prime time. But if this team ends up where they should be, which is in Charlotte, I think that they've shown the rest of the country, hey, we are not who y'all think we are. We are even better. We are not, it's old NC State. They'll find a way to lose it. No, we're a team that finds a way to win. We're a team that finds a way to make the right play at the right time. This is who we are today, and this is who we're going to be going forward.
You can hit the team with the eye test. You can trust your gut. You can make predictions based on what the other teams are looking like. You can listen to experts. You can listen to us. It all comes back to the singular point. If you stand on business, 10-2 should be the absolute minimum. There needs to be 10 wins where it is nothing but standing on business. Now, you also might be wondering, okay, with all these other schools' ratings, what is NC State ranked? They are 28 in the SP Plus ranking. That's solid. I'd say anything inside the top 30 is a solid football team. There's only 2 of those that State has to play, and everyone else is 47th or worse. Go out there, leave no doubt, and stand on business. There's really no other way you can say it about the schedule. The time is now, and it's time to go. Coming up next, we're getting into our 2 commitments that were announced for NC State football on Thursday after a quick word from our sponsors. Today's sponsor is FanDuel. Look, we all love sports. In fact, we love them so much, we never want them to end. The playoffs are gone. Baseball is really all we got going on right now. We have the Olympics in the near future, but sports are not sportsing the way we want them to. FanDuel is here to save the day. FanDuel keeps sports going all summer long whenever we want. All we have to do is open up the app and dream up any bets at any time you're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for someone every day all summer long, including, it's still not too late, to hammer the win total over for NC State football, currently sitting at 8.5. They're going to get more than 8.5. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Middle portion of our Thursday show. Now time to discuss our 2 commitments for NC State football on Thursday. 2 big ones, 2 priority commitments. First, we're going to go with Spike Sowells. Now, we mentioned Spike on Tuesday. He's a 3-star interior offensive lineman from Louisville, Kentucky. His final 3 schools were South Carolina, Kentucky, and NC State. And on Thursday afternoon, he chose to run with the Pack. Now, we talked about Sowells. He has an NFL father, comes from an NFL bloodline. That could be a key factor in being an impact player here at the next level. We also talked about how frequently we saw other commits or other guys on the team tweet out how badly they wanted Spike to choose NC State. That means something in this day and age. You want to influence those guys to play with you that you want on the team. They're good locker room fits. And I had tuned into his live commitment on Instagram, and just briefly I heard, I think it was the principal and then the head coach speak about Spike a little bit, and they kept coming back to the fact that he's an excellent young man. And he's a great football player, of course, but his impact in the community, in the locker room, and at the school in total, that's what makes him such a great, well-rounded human being. Plug that right into Dave Doran's culture, and you have a winner. He's an all-around great person to bring into the program, and that's the exactly type of guy that we need. Yeah, and not only is he a great person, but, I mean, you talk about the player part of it.
you and I both agreed that next year the offensive line is going to need a ton of guys to step up based upon the fact that, hey, we're losing a lot. You're looking at multiple guys who have played a ton of football here, in Belton and Peak and Corral, who is new here, but has played a lot of football in general at the FBS level. You're looking at guys who have done it, who have gone out, who have shown what they are. And you're asking yourself, how are we going to replace them? A dynamic player like Soels is absolutely what you need. Again, you talk about coming from NFL stock and all that, but this guy, for a man his size, he just moves so well in space. He really and truly does, and that's something that's very interesting to see, because I can already imagine Robert and I salivating about some pin and pull plays where the center is the puller leading a back or wide receiver on the jet sweep or whatever the case may be around the bend. This is a really good get for the Pack. And again, when you talk about the teams that we were up against, you talk about Kentucky and South Carolina and Louisville, those are all extremely quality teams. You talk about offensive line in particular. I've already talked about this with Kentucky. It's what they're known for. So getting a win for this young man, getting him to run with the Pack, very big deal there.
An evaluation on 247 Sports says, quote, one of the most pure center projections in the entire 2025 cycle. He is measured at 6'2", but pushing 300 pounds. Could best be described as a knockdown machine at the prep level that packs a powerful punch. I can only imagine how fired up Coach 2J gets about reading excerpts like that. But circling back to picking out of the pockets of the other states around us, we also talked about this on Tuesday in regards to Spike. To take a player out of Louisville, Kentucky, and he did have an offer from Louisville. They didn't make it in their final three, but Kentucky did. To pluck such a highly touted player out of a hotbed for both Louisville and Kentucky, that's a really big deal. And then in addition to also beating out South Carolina, who is in the final three, seems like we're making a habit out of beating the Gamecocks for some of these big-time recruits. I remember Paylor last summer was a really big deal and still is for the Pack. So we've talked a lot about NC State staying hot on the recruiting trail, and Spike Soels being a priority for the Pack. Really good get here. The second one on Thursday was actually earlier in the day. Defensive end Micah Newton. He's a 3-star defensive end out of Newberry, Florida. He chose NC State over Michigan State and UCF. So there you go. There's another one. Taking a guy out of Florida who had an offer from a Florida school is yet again a really big deal. You really can't not keep reiterating how big of a deal it is to pluck Florida guys away from Florida schools, or Kentucky guys away from Kentucky schools, South Carolina guys away from South Carolina schools. That is how you continue to build upon the building blocks that keeps this program raising the floor. Little things like that, the little recruiting wins that eventually amount to big recruiting wins, and that's exactly where NC State's headed. But an interesting nugget I saw in the recruitment and commitment of Micah Newton. Apparently, Micah's high school coach has a great relationship with our Coach Wiles, the defensive line coach. That goes pretty much hand in hand. But they also had previously crossed paths involving former defensive tackle here in Corey Durden. So that relationship from just a couple of years ago pays off in a big way, and NC State lands Micah Newton.
Yeah, and Micah is a guy that he is, how should I say this? He is like a smaller version of Davin Van in terms of what you see from him, with a very powerful guy, understands leverage, works out on the edge a little bit, but it's not hard to imagine a guy with his frame, currently listed at 6'2", 255, putting on 20 pounds or so over the course of his career and being the guy that you can move up and down the line, or maybe even just maintaining or putting on 10 pounds and getting very shredded and being a guy that you can move all up and down in terms of third down packages, put him at the 3 technique, put him at the nose. But in base packages, leave him at end and kind of let him work where there's a little bit more space. He's a guy that you can expect I wouldn't expect him to be a big contributor day one. I think that's being a little disingenuous with yourself in terms of what the 3-3-5 demands of its down lineman and what his skill set is at the moment. I think that's a little tough. But a few years from now, I would not be shocked and surprised if this young man developed into a phenomenal football player in terms of, again, that Davin Van role of having flexibility to do whatever is needed to get this team wins via the defensive line.
We preach left and right about player development at NC State. Micah Newton feels like a great fit to plug in there and then see where he develops over the course of a couple years. And who knows, he could be anchoring down one of the edges of the defensive line here in the near future. Big day for NC State football. It seems like that we've had a lot of days where we pick up 2 recruits in the same day, a lot of twofers around the Murphy Center these days. That's a really good problem to have. Micah Newton and Spike Sowells commit to NC State on Thursday. 2 very good gets to continue adding to the 2025 class. NC State is staying hot on the recruiting trail, and that's only going to bring more fortune in the future. But on this same topic, coming up next, we're going to discuss if we think recruiting will ever catch up to the player development factor at NC State after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Thursday show, now getting into a question that Kenton actually posed to me before we hopped on here. We both thought it was such a good question that we would include a whole segment on it to close the show. The question was, do we think that the level of recruiting will ever catch up to the level of player development at NC State? Obviously, player development has been the calling card here over the course of Dave Doran's tenure, dating all the way back to Kenton's days in 2013. We've developed several handfuls of players up to the NFL level and continue to churn out guys that maybe are 3 stars coming in, but they kind of feel like 5 stars going out. So the question here, and Kenton, I'll let you answer this first. Do you think that the recruitment level will catch up to the level of player development anytime soon?
I would say it would be ideal. It would be amazing. It would be so awesome. It would be so cool. But no, it's not happening. Only because of how good our player development is. I truly think that our recruiting, however, I would say our recruiting is tiers off from where our player development is. And here's the thing. If we can get up to, I would say, low end of our player development, if there were like 5 or 6 tiers, I would say we're top end of top tier, like in terms of player development and what we're doing. If we could get to the high end of tier 2, low end of tier 1 in terms of recruiting. So by that, I mean, if I was breaking the NCAA up in fifths, there are nearly 140 teams. So that's 28 teams per. Yeah. If we could consistently be in that range of mid 20s to 30s, like every year we're between 25 and 35, I don't think we'd be there long, because I think we'd be bringing in some championships based on player development combined with that.
So I kind of feel like both are currently on the rise. Obviously, player development's been on the rise for much longer, but some of the success that we talked about finishing last season and the way that had that instant impact on the recruiting, not just at the high school ranks, but in the transfer portal as well. Picked up several highly talented, very experienced guys that are going to plug into the system here in 24. And now we have some of the highest aspirations we've probably ever had at NC State. If you continue winning the way that we think that we will here in 24, you're going to see a very obvious uptick in recruiting. And that means more 4 stars, maybe some 5 stars. I know we're still waiting on the commitment of Faison Brandon here, number 1 quarterback in the 26 class. If you land a guy like that, more dominoes are very surely to fall. But I would agree with you that the player development track is still higher than the recruiting track. But I tell you what, we say this a lot on here, winning will improve everything. Yeah. Everything tastes better when you're winning. And exactly. recruiting will continue to get way sweeter if you continue to win on the gridiron. And we're talking like ACC championship in this year, the year of our Lord 2024, you will see 4- and 5-star guys turn ahead and say, okay, what's going on over there in Raleigh? All of a sudden, these guys have come up. They're winning 9, 10 games every year. They're going to a high-level bowl. Now they're winning ACC championships. I might give them a call. I might take a flyer. What is really going on down there? That type of thing is going to happen. We say this all the time, but NC State is right on the doorstep to breaking into that upper echelon of college football prestige. We're not quite where the Ohio States and the Oregons and the Texas. We're not there. We all understand that. We're an ACC championship and maybe some wins in the CFP away from starting to inch up in that direction. It could happen as soon as this year.
Absolutely, and it can't be argued against that. Again, I'm not asking. Notice that I broke the tiers down by number in terms of like, hey, this is how many top 28 are here, 29 through 56 is here, 57 through 75. Whatever. I'm saying that for a specific reason, okay? The reality of this thing is simple. If you can show up and make a way to get into that, again, bottom tier 1, top tier 2 type of situation, I have no doubt in my mind I have no doubt in my mind that you won't. If you get them, you get to turn players that are already very good into something even better. Next thing you know, you look up and you're like, hey, we're whooping the wheels off everybody here. We're kind of the kings of the mound. And then all of a sudden, when you become the kings of the mound, winning is contagious. Players want to play with winners. The drinks are colder, or the drinks taste better. The ice is colder. The food is better. The women are prettier. The jokes are funnier when you're winning. I can promise you, I know all of those things. I've seen them all firsthand. Everything is better when you're winning. So all they have to do, go out on the field, take advantage of the Charmin soft schedule, take advantage of some of the high-quality recruits you pulled in, and this will be a temporary stop on the elevator that is going all the way to the top.
For reference, right now, with the addition of our 2 commitments today, NC State now ranks 48th on 247 Sports. We're still looking at a couple more 2025 commitments, and if we are to get one or both of them, that's Jonte Gilbert and Jordan Young, those would be colossally large for this class. Those would probably vault us into, I'd say, at least the 30s, if not higher than that. So there is still plenty of time to get into that 20 and 30 range, but right now you're looking at 48. Not quite where you need to get, but you're still within reaching distance. If you can get in that 20-30 range every year, so for example, this past season with Jonathan Paylor's class, they were 27th, if I'm not mistaken. And that tied the highest that Doran has ever had here at NC State. You got to look to get to that level every single year, because once you get to that level, oh, buddy, everyone else is in danger. I promise.
It's all on the table. Everything's on the table at that point.
And it can start as soon as nearly a month from now. Kick that ball off in August. You put boot to you know where. You win 10-plus games this season. You're going to start getting into that 20 and 30 range every single year. That'll do it for us here on Thursday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about the SP Plus ratings and where NC State falls on that. Tell us what you think about the 2 commitments that went down on Thursday afternoon. Micah Newton and Spike Sowells have chosen to run with the Pack. And anything else you have on your mind, actually answer this question as well. Do you think that recruiting level will catch up to player development level at NC State? Anything else you have on your mind, drop it down in the box and hit that subscribe button on your way out the door. We will see you all tomorrow for Fan Friday. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.